Millennia had passed since humanity left old Earth. Not in a blaze of glory, nor in a catastrophic exodus, but in a gradual, almost melancholic migration to the stars. Earth, our ancestral home, had become a quarantined cradle, a relic. The planet, scarred by ancient conflicts and ecological mismanagement, was deemed too dangerous for sustained habitation. Its atmosphere unstable, its surface teeming with genetically engineered, self-replicating nanobots from a forgotten war that still consumed and rebuilt matter in chaotic, unpredictable cycles. Humanity, now a sprawling, multi-world civilization, spanned hundreds of star systems. We were a formidable force in the galactic concordance, known for our tenacity, our adaptability, and our bewildering emotional complexity. But our origins remained a point of contention. Other species, particularly the ancient Stoic Chronos and the hyperlogical synthetics, viewed old Earth with suspicion. Its history, a chaotic tapestry of conflict, environmental destruction, and brutal, often self-inflicted suffering, painted a picture of a species inherently unstable, fundamentally flawed. The Grand Council of the Concordance was in session, debating humanity's full membership into the Inner Circle, a privilege reserved for species deemed to have fully matured beyond their primitive, violent tendencies. Ambassador Kaylin Vance, a human historian and diplomat, stood before the council, defending her species against centuries of accumulated xenoscientific bias. Humanity has shed its ancient ways, a Chronos delegate projected, its temporal, sensors scanning through millennia of human history, yet the statistical probability of recidivism in your species remains elevated. Your ancestral homeworld, old Earth, is a monument to chaotic self-destruction. We observe a consistent pattern of internal conflict, resource depletion, and what you term terrorism. A synthetic delegate, its optical sensors gleaming, added, "Indeed, our analysis of old Earth's final archived planetary broadcasts indicates a high incidence of irrational emotional responses to societal stressors. We have retrieved data fragments from a period of particularly heightened chaos, designated early 21st century Terran Standard Time. It suggests a deeply flawed societal structure. The synthetic projected a raw, unedited, fragmented data stream onto the Council's central holofield. It was a cacophony of sound and distorted images, flickering news reports of collapsing towers, screaming crowds, the blaring sirens of emergency services, and the raw, unfiltered terror of a planet. Reeling from a profound shock, the date shimmered ominously, September 11th, 2001. The alien delegates recoiled. The images, though distorted by millennia of signal degradation, were clear enough. Mass destruction, unprovoked violence, the very chaos they feared in humanity. This data, the synthetic stated with chilling precision, is presented as irrefutable evidence of humanity's inherent instability. A species that could inflict such damage upon itself, a species whose final broadcast moments are consumed by such irrational terror and grief, cannot be trusted with the full privileges of the Inner Circle. The argument was compelling. The images spoke for themselves. The chaos, the fear, the destruction, it was all there, damning evidence of humanity's savage past. The Grand Council looked ready to vote. Ambassador Vance, however, raised a hand. Her face was serene, but her eyes held a fire. "With respect, Council," she said, her voice resonating with calm authority, "this is indeed the last signal of old Earth. But you are only seeing a fragment of it. You are seeing the wound, but not the healing. You are seeing the fall, but not the rise. I ask for the opportunity to present the full context of this chaotic broadcast. I ask to show you the rest of the signal." The Council, intrigued by her defiance, granted her request. Vance, with a deep breath, knew this was humanity's final chance. She had to show them that September 11th was not a testament to humanity's barbarity, but to its profound, paradoxical, and ultimately triumphant compassion. Ambassador Vance began her presentation not with the towers falling, but with the seconds immediately after the first impact. She asked the synthetic to filter its data for individual communication logs, for the smallest, most personal whispers buried beneath the global chaos. The hollow field shifted, the blaring sirens faded, replaced by a softer, more intimate stream of data. 8:47:03 EST. A short, garbled message from a civilian commuter flight. "Mom, it's me. I love you. Something's happened. Just remember that." The message was incomplete, filled with static, but the emotional signature was clear. Fear, yes, but overriding it. A desperate, fierce love. 48:19 EST. A fragmented text message from a building employee. "Power out. Can't breathe. Tell Sarah Signal lost." Despair, yes. But even in the face of death, the instinct was connection, love, family. Dorsta. The first fragments of emergency services communication. Tower 1 heavily impacted. All units proceed with caution. Priority, mass evacuation. Civilians first. Repeat, civilians first. The aliens heard the urgency, but Vance highlighted the priority. Self-sacrifice, without question. "You see a species engulfed in terror," Vance explained, her voice steady. "I see a species where, in the face of unexpected, horrific violence, the immediate, overwhelming instinct was not to flee, not to attack, but to reach out, to connect, to protect those they loved and those they had never even met." She then presented data from the emergency services. The aliens had seen the images of buildings falling. Vance showed them the flight patterns of the fire engines, the ambulance corps, the police cruisers. Their vectors were not away from the danger, but directly towards it. "These individuals," Vance continued, "voluntarily, instinctively, moved towards the collapse. They did not know the full extent of the danger. They did not know if they would survive. But their programming, their core directive, was not self-preservation. It was to save others. The Chronos delegate, its temporal processors analyzing. The unprecedented data projected a query. This behavior is counterintuitive, illogical. Statistical probability of individual survival approaches 0 in such vectors. Why? "Because that is the fundamental paradox of humanity," Vance replied, a faint smile touching her lips. "We are illogical. We are emotional. And in our deepest crises, our instinct is to protect the collective, even at the cost of the individual. We call it heroism." She then shifted to the communication logs from Flight 93. The aliens had recorded the frantic, terrified screams of the passengers as they realized their plane was hijacked. But Vance played the other logs, the final calls home, the raw, desperate conversations where passengers, facing certain death, made a collective, impossible decision. "We're going to do something inaudible. I love you, honey. Tell the kids. They're going for the cockpit. We're going in. There's a chance. Tell everyone." These were ordinary civilians, Vance explained, her voice thick with emotion. Facing the absolute terror of their final moments, they chose to fight back, not for personal survival, but to prevent further destruction. To save strangers. They sacrificed themselves, not because it was logical, but because it was right. The alien delegates, accustomed to cold, rational calculations of self-interest, were genuinely bewildered. They saw the data. They saw the sacrifice. They could not reconcile it with the chaos and violence they had been shown. Vance shifted the focus of her presentation to the hours and days immediately following the attacks. The synthetics' initial data had shown only the raw, unfiltered grief and panic. Vance overlaid this with other global data streams: satellite, imagery, civilian communication networks, local news archives. She showed them the images of the world. Not just the affected cities, but every continent, every major city. Candlelight vigils in London, Paris, Tokyo, Sydney, Cairo, Moscow. Millions of individual lights, burning in unison. A silent, global testament to shared sorrow and solidarity. These individuals were not directly affected, Vance explained. They had no genetic or political ties to the victims. Yet they shared the grief. They offered their support. They mourned as one. This is empathy, a core tenet of human existence. The capacity to feel another's pain and to respond to it with compassion, even across vast distances. She then showed the economic data. The vast, spontaneous outpouring of donations, billions of credits, from individuals and organizations, flowing to relief efforts. The endless lines of blood donors, ordinary citizens waiting for hours to give a part of themselves. The thousands of volunteers who converged on the affected areas, working tirelessly, without expectation of reward, to clear rubble, provide comfort, and offer aid. A Chronos delegate, its temporal sensors now racing through the data, projected, "Such collective redirection of resources away from individual prosperity is unprecedented. We observe a peak in cooperative behavior, a surge in altruism. This contradicts the observed patterns of competitive, resource-driven species." Precisely, Vance affirmed. For all our flaws, for all our wars, for all our self-destruction, when humanity is faced with external malice, its most profound instinct is not to turn on itself. It is to turn towards each other, to connect, to rebuild, to ensure that the darkness does not win. She showed them the local news broadcasts from the immediate aftermath, the desperate cries of lost and separated families. But then, the joyful, tearful reunions, the stories of strangers becoming lifelong friends, forged in the crucible of shared suffering. The acts of kindness, a firefighter sharing his water, a civilian offering their jacket, a doctor working tirelessly for days without rest. This was the true chaos of humanity, a chaotic, unpredictable, but overwhelmingly powerful outpouring of compassion, resilience, and a stubborn refusal to succumb to despair. This was the raw, unfiltered emotional blueprint of our species. Vance then brought her presentation to its most crucial point. She showed them the long-term impact of that day. Not the rebuilding of the physical structures, but the rebuilding of the human spirit. She showed them the creation of memorials across the planet, quiet, hallowed grounds where the names of the lost were etched, where a single, defiant flame burned eternal. She showed them the annual observances, the solemn ceremonies, the quiet moments of reflection. "We do not forget our pain," Vance explained. "We do not erase it. We remember it. Not to dwell in sorrow, but to honor the fallen, to remind ourselves of the price of malice, and to reaffirm our commitment to protecting each other." She showed them the subsequent legislative changes, the strengthening of security, the hardening of defenses, the global cooperation against future threats. But she emphasized that these actions were taken not out of revenge, but out of a collective, shared resolve to prevent such horror from ever happening again. We learned that day that vulnerability is real, but we also learned that strength is not in never falling, but in always getting back up, Vance declared, her voice ringing with conviction. The synthetic delegate, its internal processors whirring furiously, projected a new calculation. The probability of societal collapse from such an event, based on other species' historical data, is 98.7%. The observed human response yields a societal cohesion factor increase of 47.3% in the subsequent cycle. This is anomalous. It is not anomalous, counselor, Vance corrected gently. It is humanity. We are a species forged in fire. We carry our scars not as burdens, but as reminders of our strength. We weep, and then we rebuild. We mourn, and then we fight for the future. The Chronos delegate, its usually impassive form shimmering slightly, projected, "We observed only fragmented data of chaos and despair. Ambassador Vance has presented data revealing a profound, underlying network of connection, of empathy, of a will to endure that transcends individual logic. Our initial assessment was incomplete." The Grand Council of the Concordance, silent throughout Vance's presentation, now saw a different picture of old Earth. They no longer saw a primitive, chaotic species consumed by its own flaws. They saw a species capable of profound love, immense courage, and an unbreakable spirit that found its greatest strength not in the absence of pain, but in the collective, defiant journey through it. The vote for humanity's full membership into the inner circle of the Concordance was unanimous. It was a historic moment, not just for humanity, but for the entire galactic civilization. The last signal of old Earth, once presented as damning, evidence of humanity's flaws, had become its greatest triumph. Ambassador Kaylin Vance, her mission accomplished, felt the collective weight of millennia of human struggle and triumph settle upon her. She had shown the galaxy not just what humanity was, but who we truly were at our core. The Concordance began to incorporate elements of human social psychology into their own diplomacy and crisis management. They learned about the power of memorials, the importance of collective remembrance, and the profound, often irrational strength that emerges from shared adversity. They learned that the greatest civilizations were not just those that avoided suffering, but those that learned to navigate it, to grow from it, and to heal together. The quarantined cradle, old Earth, remained a forbidden world, its nanobot-infested surface a testament to a forgotten war. But its legacy was no longer one of shame. It was a legacy of resilience. It was a reminder that even in its darkest hour, humanity had responded not with chaos, but with an outpouring of compassion that resonated across the stars. The stories of 9/11, once buried deep in human archives, were now shared openly with the Concordance. They became lessons for other species, proof that chaos could sometimes forge connection, that sorrow could give birth to strength, and that even the most profound destruction could be met with an unyielding, collective will to rebuild. Years after the momentous vote, Ambassador Vance stood on a viewing platform, looking back at the distant blue-green shimmer that was old Earth. It was still quarantined, still dangerous, but its signal, its last true broadcast, had been heard. She thought of the raw, painful, beautiful data she had presented to the Council. The cries of love, the acts of heroism, the global vigils, the unyielding spirit of a species that had refused to be broken. It wasn't a perfect signal, not by any logical alien standard. It was messy. It was emotional. It was human. And in that mess, in that emotion, the galaxy had found a truth it had long overlooked, that the true measure of a civilization isn't how perfectly it avoids conflict, but how profoundly it responds to it. The memory of 9/11, once a scar, had become a testament to humanity's capacity for both immense suffering and unimaginable courage. It was a reminder that even in the face of absolute terror, a species could choose compassion over hatred, unity over division, and remembrance over despair. The last signal of old Earth was not a whisper of defeat, but a defiant roar of resilience. It was the enduring promise that no matter how far humanity journeyed into the stars, no matter what challenges it faced, the core of who we were, our capacity to love, to sacrifice, to endure, and to rebuild together, would always remain unbroken. And that, in the vast, indifferent cosmos, was our greatest strength, a strength forged in the fire of our tumultuous origins. A strength that had earned us our rightful place among the stars, not despite our past, but precisely because of it.